What did BTS Suga do inside the military hall that left every single person in stunned silence? Was it just a salute, or something far more emotional? Witness the moment that's shaking fans and soldiers alike. Read now before it disappears. Have you ever witnessed a moment so profound, so raw, that it felt like time stood still? What could possibly make hardened soldiers tear up in unison? And what role did a global superstar play in it? Could it be that beneath the quiet exterior of Min Yoongi, known to the world as Suga of BTS, lies a storm of emotion waiting to erupt at the most unexpected moment? Before we dive into the intense moments that unfolded inside the military hall, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more inside news on your favorite artists. This one's not just for ARMY, it's for anyone who believes in humanity, growth, and unforgettable moments. At precisely 1437 KST, the doors to the Public Service Center in Seoul's Eastern District swung open, and silence fell across the military hall like a heavy curtain. The atmosphere wasn't just quiet, it was expectant. Word had already spread among a handful of military personnel and slowly leaked to civilian ears that BTS's Suga, Min Yoongi, would be present for an internal appreciation and farewell ceremony. What no one expected, however, was what really happened inside that room. Let's take it back just a few hours. For those who haven't kept track, Suga began his mandatory military service on September 22, 2023, not in the traditional combat post like some of his bandmates, but as a public service worker, a designation often given due to physical or mental health conditions. In Suga's case, shoulder surgery and related complications had determined his position. While some skeptics may have underestimated the intensity or value of public service, what they failed to predict was how Suga would transform that assignment into something deeply meaningful for himself and for those around him. As his discharge date approaches, set for June 21, 2025, there had been whispers that Yoongi had been quietly preparing something for his final days in service, yet no one was prepared for the intensity of what was to come. It wasn't about a performance, it wasn't about fame, it was about something far deeper. When Suga entered the hall, dressed not in a flashy stage outfit, but the simple uniform of a public service worker, there was a momentary hush. Most eyes had adjusted to his presence in the unit, treating him as any other colleague over the last year and a half, but that day was different. One of the military supervisors stepped forward to hand Yoongi a certificate of completion, the standard part of the protocol. What came next was not. Yoongi raised his right hand for a salute. Simple, respectful. But it wasn't his hand or posture that captured everyone's attention. It was his voice, quiet at first, then rising, not in song, but in a short, raw speech that came entirely from the heart. This uniform is not just a fabric. It's a reminder that every citizen, no matter their name or past, can contribute. I was terrified when I first arrived here. I wasn't sure if I could be of use, but I was wrong. He paused, eyes fixed forward, jaw tight. Every morning I woke up to serve not just my country, but my own healing. I learned things here no stage could have ever taught me. I found silence, and inside that silence, I found clarity. And for that, I am grateful. The room shifted. One soldier dropped his head. Another wiped his eye, hiding behind his cap. A commanding officer exhaled, audibly. But Yoongi wasn't done. He stepped aside from the podium and, without fanfare, pulled something from his bag. A worn-out notebook. No BTS logo, just a simple black cover. With trembling hands, he opened it and began to read names, not of global celebrities, but of the colleagues he'd worked with, one by one. Corporal Min Jae, you shared your rice when I forgot lunch. Thank you. Private Lee Sung-hoon, you taught me how to take the bus without getting lost. Sergeant Kim, you made me laugh on the day I got terrible news. Each name, each story, human, small, yet colossal in emotional weight. The notebook wasn't a script, it was a diary of gratitude. By the time he closed it, the military hall was no longer silent. It was filled with sniffles, teary eyes, clenched fists, and overwhelmed hearts. Then came the surprise. With a quiet nod to the technical staff, a projector lit up behind him, showing a simple video montage. Not BTS concerts, not award wins, but clips from the past 21 months of Suga's life in service. Him sweeping the floor, eating in the mess hall, helping an elderly. But as the applause faded and emotions lingered in the still air, something unexpected began to unfold, and not everyone was applauding. Was Suga's farewell truly as noble as it seemed, or was there a deeper controversy hiding in plain sight? Inside military forums and anonymous online communities, whispers quickly turned into pointed accusations. Some claimed that the entire ceremony, including the emotional speech and video montage, had been pre-approved by senior officials, an unusual move for what should have been a low-key internal military event. Why does a celebrity get a video montage in a government facility? Wrote one user in a thread that quickly garnered over 10,000 comments in less than 2 hours. This feels like a PR stunt disguised as patriotism, another user chimed in. Military insiders attempted to squash the rumors by stating that no government resources were used for the video and that Yoongi had created and submitted it using his personal equipment on his own time. But the internet, as always, had other plans. Photos from inside the hall began leaking. Anonymous posts surfaced on Twitter, now known as X, suggesting that certain higher-ranking officers had allowed Suga extended breaks, flexible reporting hours, and even private transportation to and from the facility, perks that most ordinary public service workers could only dream of. I was stationed in the same division. He never pulled rank, but the officers did treat him differently. They called it respect, but it looked a lot like favoritism, said a blurred-out source in a controversial livestream that gained 500,000 views in one night. And just like that, the narrative began to split into two. On one side were fans, loyal, impassioned, and protective. They argued that Suga had already endured physical hardship, had always been respectful of his duties, and that his emotional parting was nothing short of earned. He didn't choose to be born a star, but he chose to serve. He did it without complaint, without press. He could have fled like others, but he stayed. That's integrity, wrote a fan in a viral thread. On the other side, nationalists, conservative veterans, and even some media figures began to question the entire structure of celebrity military service. Public service? That's a loophole, not a sacrifice, argued an op-ed published in a prominent conservative paper the following day. K-pop idols are turning mandatory duty into emotional theater, another headline read. Suddenly, Suga's name wasn't just trending in fan spaces, it was dominating political talk shows, with panelists shouting over each other about the growing gap between regular citizens and untouchable celebrity soldiers. And then came the biggest shock of all. A former military coordinator went on record. In an interview aired by a respected investigative news channel, the retired officer claimed that the very structure of public service programs is quietly influenced by connections, especially in high-profile cases. It's not illegal, but is it equal? Absolutely not. If you're a normal 28-year-old Korean man with shoulder surgery, you get a desk and are forgotten. If you're Suga from BTS, you get a military hall full of cameras and a national conversation. The bombshell didn't stop there. The officer also claimed that during Yoongi's service, he received multiple discreet visits from HYBE staff, a privilege strictly restricted for ordinary workers. Even worse, there were alleged negotiations between HYBE and military authorities about the tone and content of the farewell speech. HYBE released an immediate statement. The speech and video were prepared privately by Mr. Min Yoongi and not coordinated with any official party or authority. No company representative influenced his expression. We reject any insinuation otherwise. Still, the fire had been lit. A military watchdog group officially requested an audit. Petitions were filed to reevaluate how celebrity military service is monitored. Suga trended not for music, but for being the center of a national debate on fairness. And in the middle of this inferno, Yoongi, silent. No tweets, no live stream, no comments. Just silence. Until 3 days later. He posted a single sentence to Weverse. "I did what I could. If that wasn't enough, I accept it." It wasn't defensive, it wasn't strategic, but it sparked another storm. Was he admitting fault? Was he speaking to fans or critics? The internet spiraled into overanalysis. Meanwhile, protests erupted outside Hype headquarters from both sides. One group demanded an apology. Another held signs that read, "Min Yoongi is Korea's son, respect him." And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, one uncomfortable question remained hanging in the national air like smoke. Can a man ever do enough when the country he serves is divided by what he represents? Is he a musician trying to fulfill duty, or a global brand navigating a broken system?